He is very fast round here. It's his local circuit. He knows it well. Carl Fogarty there and Ray Stringer on the front row. Stringer then riding number 17 from Nuneaton in the Mobil 1 Team Coleman colours. Has had a really super year, Ray Stringer. Won 3 out of 3 at Mallory Park in the Transatlantic Series on a full 1000cc Yamaha, but this, the 750s, of course. Ray Stringer probably rated by the other riders as the man to beat, and he's been on the front row at every round so far this year. The Team Green Kawasaki Teamster from Nuttall in Nottinghamshire, John Reynolds, a wealth of experience, very highly regarded by his fellow competitors, and went round here at 1:31.2, which is a little over half a second slower than the pole position, but knowing John the way I do, I suspect that there's a little bit left in reserve. Interesting to see if Reynolds then, riding number 6, can bring the Kawasaki to the 4. In the middle of the front row, the very, very experienced Scot, Brian Morrison, on the Drambuie Yamaha. Good result in the Isle of Man TT this year. Morrison has yet really to show us the form he displayed so brilliantly in the 88-89 seasons, but nevertheless is bouncing back. The fact that he's third fastest round here today is some indication of a return to form for Brian Morrison. From Blackburn in Lancashire, Carl Fogarty, a very hard-riding Team Silkerline Honda runner, riding number 9, Fogarty. Just 0.1 of a second behind the pole position time. So Carl Fogarty is going to be a very, very determined protagonist indeed in this 750 race. And there's the pole position man, Rob McElnea, holding the Loctite Yamaha colours here, while teammate Terry Reimer is off the scene. So McElnea, the pole position man, and the second place in the championship. The Nortons didn't qualify too quick at all, and falling very, very heavily in practice yesterday. The man who replaced Neil Mackenzie in the Silkerline Honda team, Roger Burnett, a local man, had a great ride, you'll remember, in the wet at Brands Hatch. Was in pole position at a very wet Thruxton last week. The meeting, unfortunately, was abandoned because the weather was absolutely appalling. But Roger tumbled heavily in practice yesterday, was taken to hospital to have his back x-rayed, has arrived back at the circuit and says he fully intends to do the distance. That remains to be seen. He is just a little bit uncomfortable, to say the least. Jamie Whitham, number 5, the man who did the flying lap for us, carrying the on-bike camera, much happier, and freely admits to being much happier now that he's back in the Team Grant Suzuki camp. Whitham too was another faller during qualifying yesterday afternoon, but in his own words, well, the back just slipped out and I stepped off it and there's no harm done. I'm fit and well. So young Jamie, second row, that's a good place for him. Could well be among them. Languishing by Haslam's standards on the 4th row, Norton have had all sorts of problems with the electronics on their bikes here at Cadwell. These are both Haslam and Nation are out on the 1991 Nortons, and team manager Barry Simmons said the electronics were giving all sorts of problems. Haslam's bike was misfiring at anything over 8,500 revs yesterday, and the misfire was unpredictable. It would run happily for many, many laps. They thought they'd cured it, but this morning the gremlins struck again after 6 laps. So I think the philosophy has to be for Haslam to go as hard as he can from the word go and just keep his fingers crossed that the Norton keeps running sweetly. 15 laps the distance for the 750s, 2.17 miles. Riders set off now for the warm-up lap, having completed the sighting. They've had their customary look round the circuit. The warm-up lap now to get the bikes, tyres, into working temperature. Alongside me, as always, we missed him at Brands Hatch, Steve Parish, former British champion. Steve, Cadwell Park, the conditions are good and the times are close.
They certainly are, and it is nice to see the conditions good. A lot of the teams were ready with their wet and intermediate tyres earlier on as we had some showers and the clouds came over, but it's cleared now, and it most certainly will be a dry race. And it's the last thing you need around this circuit is rainy conditions, because they can be very changeable, with trees overhanging certain parts of the circuit to make it very, very greasy and very slippery. But they're now away to warm up these big slick tyres. That's tyres with no tread on whatsoever, and they just get the heat into the tyres by powering them around the corners.
Well, I'm just looking across the front row, Steve, and there's a variety of machinery. A couple of Yamahas, the Kawasaki, and the Honda, of course, of Fogarty's. Anything to choose in speed between any of those makes?
Well, Rob McElnea's Loctite Yamaha is a very fast machine, and also is Carl Fogarty's. I think it will be between those two, personally. Rob's taken the pole position, but that's put him on the outside of the grid, so there's a possibility that someone could sneak through on the first corner. That we'll have to see, and it will depend on the start. But I think it's going to be between those two.
Well, number 10, Roger Burnett, they're out having a fairly rapid warm-up lap, but we do emphasise this is the warm-up lap. And what of Haslam down there on the fourth row? The Norton obviously not running properly, and this is Haslam's first time here in finals.
Yeah, it's a problem for Ron. Even if they have cured the problem, which I hope for their sake they have, he's going to struggle a little bit in the early stages to get past the traffic in front of him, because if they've cured it, he'll be lapping quicker than some of the people, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to pass them that easily. The Norton does have a fair amount of straight line speed, so he should be able to nip past one or two in the early stages, but once he gets up to the third, fourth positions, then it's going to take long before him to pass by.
Would the fact that he's not been here for a number of years have any bearing?
Well, I guess they've Nortons have been here testing. They were testing here on Friday, I know, and also with the qualification Saturday. I don't think that's a major problem for him, because he used to ride here. This was his local circuit. He knew the circuit better than anyone, so I think the refresher he had here on Friday testing will have put him back into pretty good stead for the day.
36 riders will line up. 15 lapper, there's number 20, Ron Haslam, 35 years of age, last Saturday. So not quite a birthday celebration for Haslam, but he'll be hoping to do a good deal better than his fourth row qualifying place. First leg of the 750s then, round 4. We have two 750 races at every Super Cup round, and out in front, Haslam on 101. Quite a healthy cushion from Rob McElnea. Stringer, Mackenzie sitting there in fourth, but won't be contesting any more rounds, so he can only drop further down. Nation and Morrison, Mike Edwards, joint on 43. Across the front row, in pole position, just half a second quicker than Fogarty, Rob McElnea, then Carl Fogarty, Brian Morrison from Kirkcaldy, John Reynolds and Ray Stringer from Nuneaton. The 750s then, 15 laps ahead of them, and a very tricky start from Carl Fogarty, who scythed right across the front row, from the right-hand side across to the left. Steve, not quite sure the reason for that, but was that wheel spin possible?
He did have a certain amount of wheel spin. You're talking of 140 brake horsepower being produced by these machines, but he did just as I thought, and somebody nipped through. Rob was on the pole position, but he was on the outside line. It enabled someone just to nip up the inside, which he's done, but I don't think that will be bothering Rob too much at this stage. We'll let the race get settled down. As I say that, he nips through on the inside, so that's proved me wrong. So he's determined to go for it from word go.
Okay then, exiting Chris Curve on lap 1. Rob McElnea, the Burley Humbersider, out in front, riding number 8. Then it's Carl Fogarty from Blackburn on the Honda. So we have 3 different makes of machinery in the top 3. In fact, we have 4 different makes, because Jamie Whitham, number 5, has slotted into 4th place on the Suzuki. Yamaha leads, Honda in 2nd, Kawasaki in 3rd, Suzuki in 4th. Then it's Ray Stringer, number 17. Then it's the Norton of Haslam. So a real variety of machinery as they crest the mountain on lap 1.
That was an incredible start by Jamie Whitham off the second row. He's slotted in there into 4th place, and I think he'll be sticking there. He's right close behind John Reynolds, and he'll take a bit of shaking off.
A good crowd here at Cadwell. The 750s always deliver the goods. A very, very hard-fought class, very spectacular. At the end of lap 1 then, head down for Rob McElnea. Then it's Fogarty. Over the line they go. Stringer well tucked in. Haslam motoring. Then behind Haslam, it's Matt Llewellyn in your picture now. Llewellyn on the yellow bike with the black and pink leathers, and I understand with a borrowed engine from the Loctite Yamaha team.
That's right, Matt had some problems at Brands Hatch 2 weeks ago, and so we've ended up lending him an engine for this meeting. He's a great young rider, and I think he's got a big future in front of him.
27 out of it, Graham Ward from Batley. So number 27 parked up. It's Trevor Nation on the Norton, hard in the wheel tracks. So Nation has got his Norton up past Haslam. Number 3, Trevor Nation, formerly from Salisbury, has moved to Hinckley in Leicestershire, is right in there behind Jamie Whitham on the Norton. So then it's Llewellyn, number 15, Matt Llewellyn. But in your picture, number 3, Trevor Nation. Number 2, closing on Llewellyn, Brian Morrison. No surprises so far, Steve, but they're certainly stringing out. And what a great start, as you say, by Jamie Whitham.
Yeah, great start by Jamie. Rob has now extended his lead a little bit. He's a second and a half in front, so he has to try. He's trying to put the pressure on at an early stage and break away. He'll be very, very keen to get away and to win this race and get as many people between him and Ron Haslam, because that's going to close the points down, and he needs for Ron to have a bit of a poor result to get that gap down closer.
The other Norton of Haslam is right in there as well, so the Norton's very much in the frame. But Reynolds and Fogarty are locked in a real scrap. Ian Simpson from Dalbeattie, number 7. Right with him, number 24, that's Dean Ashton, the British aerospace fitter from Hull. Ashton, number 24. Then it's Ian Simpson, number 7. So pretty frantic activity further down the order. Number 33, Tim Bourne from Ashford. John Reynolds, very able teammate, Tim Bourne, drafted into the Team Green Kawasaki camp at the beginning of the 91 season. But this is the battle now for second place. Number 9, Carl Fogarty, leads John Reynolds, but only just out of Crisfoot Curve, heading down towards the gooseneck, flicking it through. McElnea there has scorched round. They're at the gooseneck now. The left-hander of Mansfield awaits them. Fogarty, I seem to remember Fogarty plummeting down here in the wet at Cadwell, locking up his front brake and nearly scooping up Trevor Nation at the previous round. Hopefully not to be repeated here. They're at the bottom of the mountain. McElnea is stretching out that gap, and it's something a little over half a second at the moment, but still a long way to go.
And a real battle going on here. Rob McElnea has now lapped the circuit under the lap record time, so he is now the new lap record holder here at Cadwell Park. And he's storming away from these two, battling it out. For Carl Fogarty, he'll have to be riding a little defensively here, because John Reynolds is having a look either side of him, which won't necessarily make them go any faster. In fact, it could slow them, which would be ideal for Rob to extend his lead.
Number 9 then, Carl Fogarty, 24 years of age. Son of George Fogarty himself, no mean motorcycle racer over the years. Carl put his toe in the water at Grand Prix racing, but is very, very much at home on the short circuits and on the true roads. Fogarty then just leading Reynolds. Their battle tending to get in each other's way, I think, and leaving McElnea the opportunity just to stretch that gap even further. Steve, McElnea is a big man. Cadwell is twisty, bumpy, size, weight. Any advantage here?
No, I don't think it is at all. In fact, Rob would dearly like to be a smaller person, because it would make his motorcycle go faster. So that's all. We have a faller here, number 20, Ron Haslam, has had a tumble. That's bad luck for the Norton camp, because Ron needed those points.
That's the championship leader, Ron Haslam, out of round 4. And there's Haslam walking away, just being consoled by one or two of the marshals. He won't be happy about that, because what that means is 20 points will go to the runner-up at the moment in the championship. This is the battle, however, for second place. John Reynolds, number 6, is in third. Carl Fogarty, number 9, is in second. Runner-up in the Formula 1 TT in the Isle of Man, Fogarty. His particular riding style lends itself very well to the street circuits in Northern Ireland and the Isle of Man. But as I say, equally at home on the short circuits, and has put in some good rides for the Honda team.
John Reynolds now will be watching Carl Fogarty very, very closely, just to see if he can make any ground up, possibly not making the move at this stage, because he'll wait until the race draws on a bit further. But he's eyeing Carl Fogarty up at the moment. I think he can go a bit faster.
Reynolds then rated by just about everyone here as a highly professional, scientific rider, very, very talented. And would you believe the first time he ever raced a motorcycle in anger in road racing was 1987 as he sweeps round the outside, but no, at the gooseneck. Fogarty had the inside line, down towards Mansfield still. So this is the scrap now for second and third place. Nation on the other Norton is still holding sixth place. Teammate Ron Haslam having departed the race on lap 3 to score no points. And this is going to be a very interesting equation.
Well, that was a very brave-looking manoeuvre from John Reynolds then. It didn't work, and I didn't think it would, but he had a look, and he's probably just trying to pressurise Carl Fogarty into maybe making a mistake, because if you can keep hassling someone, they maybe can run wide and give a chance to nip through. But I don't think he'll ever pass at the gooseneck there. He'll have to do it more likely at the end of the start and finish straight, or at the end of the main straight.
Out of barn, over the start-finish line again. Carl Fogarty, there's John Reynolds, number 6. So the Team Green man in third place. Ray Stringer in Jamie Whitham, I beg your pardon, in fourth. Then it's Ray Stringer. The rest of the field led by Trevor Nation come thundering through. Matt Llewellyn, Tim Bourne, and there's Ray Stringer. Fifth place man Ray Stringer has abandoned the Yamaha and his race is over. So it's all happening here at Cadwell. Unusual, Steve, for there to be tumbles like this when the conditions are dry.
Yeah, it is, but the speeds are very fast. So Rob McElnea is under the lap record times, and if he's going that fast, everyone else is trying to keep up with him. So they're really pushing on, but there is certainly no problem with the circuit. The conditions are perfect, and it's proven by the times that they're doing. But Carl Fogarty, you see, nipping through the gooseneck again. John Reynolds decided not to try and pass him at this point. I think he'll be waiting, as I said earlier, at the end of the straight would be the most favourite point to pass.
Well, I'm looking at the computer above us, which indicates Stringer still listed, of course, but what it does mean is that Trevor Nation now moves up into fourth place. Matt Llewellyn goes up into fifth, but this man, number 9, Carl Fogarty, is in second, and John Reynolds, with a massive wheelie on the Kawasaki, is third. Heeling it over, knees scraping the curb, just skimming the surface through Hall Bends down towards the hairpin, laying it into the hairpin, and ahead of them, Barn Corner, probably one of the most difficult. This has accounted for quite a few of the riders during qualifying and, in fact, racing. It's a tricky, adverse camber, no runoffs, and we were talking earlier, Steve, I gather there's some water there somewhere. There
is. Behind that innocent-looking hedge is a pond, so if you go through there and have any mistake, you could end up getting very, very wet, but it's probably the softest place you could want to land on.
Almost half distance then, on lap 7. A look over the left shoulder. Fogarty wondered just where the green Kawasaki was, but it's some 20 yards adrift now. Fogarty has piled on the coals fractionally to drag himself away, but he'll have to drag himself a lot further to get anywhere near the flying Rob McElnea, who's got that Yamaha out in front.
Carl has broken the toe now from John Reynolds, so he's putting the pressure on. Rob McElnea is still lapping the fastest at the moment. He's now nearly a second under the lap record, but the gap hasn't changed a great deal. Carl Fogarty's keeping the pressure up.
The wise head of John Reynolds there, holding station in third place on the Kawasaki. Just looking for Fogarty to make a slip, leave a wide gap that he can dive through. Or maybe not even a wide gap, a small one will do, thinks John Reynolds. Just leave the door open and I'll go for it. But he's not really close enough to capitalise on any misfortune that would befall Fogarty at the moment. He's a little bit adrift. He needs to be tacked on the back end of the Silkaleen Honda if he's able to gain any advantage from a slip and the black lines on the track there, Steve. Power sliding out, Fogarty, a rear wheel drift.
Fogarty's trying very, very hard now, and you saw as he exited Barn Corner there with a big black stripe left from his rear tyre.
Just look at the rest of the field stringing out. And this is the scrap now, headed by Nation Llewellyn. Number 7 there is Ian Simpson. So Simpson well in the action here. Father Bill has put the bike together very, very well. Ian Simpson in the yellow helmet. There's Trevor Nation, though, the only surviving Norton in this race. A Nation sitting in 5th place in the championship. And Matt Llewellyn has gone through, and right with them now, tacked on the back, is Ian Simpson. So Llewellyn with the Yamaha engine borrowed from the Loctite Yamaha team. Apparently, Steve, going very well indeed.
Yeah, I think we maybe struggled to get that one back because it looked to be faster than the Norton down the straightaway. So maybe Nation has a problem. The Norton is renowned for having very good straight line speed and top speed, and it doesn't look to be having that today. So that's possibly the reason that they were back further down on the grid here today.
Matt Llewellyn then, from Glenfield in Leicester, slips through on the inside of the Norton and is now leading this bunch quite successfully. He's got to break the toe, shake them off if he can. Through Hallbend's Tim Bourne, number 28 there as well. That's Mike Edwards from Wigan. Mike Edwards, who runs 600s, 400 Supersport, also no mean competitor on the 750, vastly experienced. But Matt Llewellyn. Llewellyn's aims for 1991 to finish in the top 3 of the British Championship, he says, and the TT Superbike Championship.
It just shows how he was being held up. He's now managed to break away from this group. He's got in front of Trevor Nation. He's pulling away very nicely. The machine's prepared by Athletic Motorcycle. Steve Linsdale there does a great job and puts a good bike together, and Matt Llewellyn's proving that he can ride it very, very well.
He's 23 years of age, Llewellyn. And number 7 now, Ian Simpson from Dalbeattie, closing on the back of Nation on the Norton. Francis Neal Racing assists Simpson, number 7. Reynolds now is piling on the coals and has gone round 1:30.67. That equals the pole position time set by McElnea. So Reynolds has left something in his back pocket for later in the race and is now producing it. But this is the battle for the lower places. I say the lower places for 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th. That's really what this is all about. In 5th place then it's Llewellyn. Fighting up through a relatively new name, Andy Ward from Selby on a Yamaha number 16 is there behind Nation, knocking at the door, having got past Ian Simpson. Just looking at them, Steve, there don't appear to be too many overtaking moves, and there only appears to be one racing line. Is that really the case? Well,
there is only really one good racing line around Cadwell Park. It's a relatively narrow circuit, but the race is, we're on lap 10 out of 15 laps, so there's still plenty of time to be going on. I think this group here will be saving themselves for the last couple of laps. I can see Trevor Nation being gobbled up a little bit more because they're bunched in very closely behind him, and he doesn't seem to have the straight line speed to pull away from them a great deal on this fast straight here. Reaching speeds of 165 miles an hour at that point.
Well, as Nation soldiers on, then having broken away a bit, a real determined challenge there from number 7, Ian Simpson, to get himself back in front of Graham Ward. Andy Ward, I beg your pardon, number 16. But Simpson now is there, right, lining up the Norton. Started his racing at the age of 16, Ian Simpson. It's number 7 we're talking about. Father Bill puts the bike together for him at meetings. Had a spell in the Suzuki camp with Mick Grant and Jamie Whitham as teammate. But now very much doing his own thing and has matured considerably, yet still only 21, Ian Simpson. Is there an age, Steve, at which a national motorcycle road racer would peak, or an age at which they're most effective?
I don't think there is. I think it all depends on how long you've been doing it and how hungry you are to go out there and win. So if you start at 20 years old, then you probably are in the chance of winning at 26, 27, or if you start at 17 or 16 years old, as some of the Americans do, then you peak out and you become your best at maybe 22. I think it really depends on how long you've been doing it, how much experience you've got, and how much, obviously, natural ability you have.
Well, Matt Llewellyn, number 15, is getting away now. Number 24 in your picture there, Dean Ashton again from Hull, who's had a fairly miserable start to the 1991 season, but seems to be getting it together halfway through the year. We are back with number 8, the race leader, Rob McElnea, and he hasn't really, in fact, the gap is now just a little bit narrower than it was before. They've got McElnea well and truly in sight. Fogarty still there in second, but they're closing on Rob Mack.
Yeah, they are. Whether or not Rob McElnea's slackened the pace off, we have 4 laps to go, so Rob's maybe easing it, but he hasn't got to ease it too much. Interestingly, the three leaders that we have. Rob McElnea's on Dunlop tyres, Carl Fogarty on Michelin, and John Reynolds on Pirelli. So we have the three tyre manufacturers that are mainly involved in this series battling away for the lead also.
A lot more at stake then than prestige, money and points. The tyre companies too waging war here at Cadwell Park. 3 different makes of bike, 3 different makes of tyre, and 3 vastly contrasting riding styles. The very steady, dependable style of race leader, the very aggressive, determined cut and thrust action of Carl Fogarty, and the composed, calm, sensible riding of John Reynolds, who always looks to me as though he's out for a Sunday afternoon ride. Yeah,
he does. He's a very steady rider and very mature for his age. Rob McElnea had some problems at the last round at Brands Hatch. He suffers sometimes from tendinitis. It's when the muscles pump up in your arms bigger than they should do, and it does cause a problem with heavy braking. Braking down into this corner here, for example, Mansfield, it's like doing a handstand as you brake into there. There's a tremendous amount of pressure. The whole weight of your body goes through your arms, and you squeeze the front brake, and the machine tries to revolve around the front wheel under heavy braking.
The top 6. Nation on the Norton still holding 6th. Llewellyn, Brian Morrison having a very lonely 4th ride, but a good ride. This is the race leader, however, number 8, Rob McElnea, who will be getting pit signals that the dueling pair of Carl Fogarty, number 9, and this man, number 6, John Reynolds, are closing. The gap now almost under 2 seconds. They're exiting Barn again. Over the line goes McElnea, and over the line goes Fogarty and Reynolds up towards Coppice, the left-hander, where Reynolds powers the Kawasaki up to the right-hander of Charlie's and then flat on the tank. What sort of speed down Park Straight, Steve?
Down Park Straight, the Yamaha is geared for 165 miles an hour, and we have actually a prevailing wind today, so it will be easily doing that. So it's extremely fast on a relatively short part of the circuit.
And certainly from that angle, it doesn't appear to be much of a straight. It's a gradual curve pretty well all up the climb.
Yeah, there's a dip in the middle of it. You get a run down the hill, and then once you've crested that rise at the end of the straight, it's very hard on the brakes into second gear for the park corner.
The gooseneck then. Carl Fogarty, number 9. This is the race leader, 8, Rob McElnea. John Reynolds, number 6, doing his utmost to get the Team Green Kawasaki out in front. Reynolds is in fact in 8th place in the championship coming into this round 4, so he needs the points. 20 points are there for the taking for the winner of this race, 17 for second, 15 for third, and a not inconsiderable amount of prize money as well. In fact, a mere £500 will go to Rob McElnea. How important is the money to the riders?
Well, very much so. I mean, it really is their wages, and it's very important for them to win that prize money, but more importantly is the prestige of winning the race, and more importantly than that is winning the championship. It's very important to the manufacturers. That's why it's so well contested at the moment by all the manufacturers. Vitally important to pick up the British Championship.
Well, 20 points is where Rob McElnea is sitting at the moment. This is the second place man, still Carl Fogarty, with an almighty weave on the RC30 Honda. Still head down in second place, but I was about to say the race leader, should he pick up his 20 points, that will move him on to 96, and the faller there, but up on his feet, Dean Ashton from Hull. So Dean Ashton is off, puts his leg over the safety wall, and Ashton was sitting very nicely in 10th place behind the Norton of Nation, who's now slipping back down the order.
Carl Fogarty now does have the advantage of being able to see Rob McElnea, so it gives him added incentive to push on. The back markers are coming into it. You saw then Rob McElnea just nip past the back marker, which was very nice for him. He was able to do it before the twisty section as they come up the mountain there. That's going to cause Carl Fogarty even more problems, because he'll arrive up on the back marker at the all bends, I think.
We were talking just as Rob McElnea gets among the tail enders, we were just talking briefly about tyres and the cost, for your information, of a rear tyre in this sort of category, something in the region of £80. And really, Steve, it's only good for one race.
Yeah, you could continue to use it for a second race, but it wouldn't have the performance that a new tyre has. All these competitors, or in fact most of the first 3 or 4 rows, will all have started with new front and rear tyres, because the performance, you have to have the best if you're going to win. They're now on the last lap, and it does look that Carl Fogarty is going to have to really go some to close in on Rob McElnea at this late stage.
A nice smooth ride by number 6, John Reynolds then. A great start, but was unable to do anything, despite having a couple of serious looks at Carl Fogarty, was unable to do anything really about improving on that. Starting from the front row, 4th fastest qualifier. I suppose, realistically, Reynolds couldn't have hoped to do any more because the times tell the story, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And John's, as I say, he doesn't do anything foolish. He just gradually gets better and better week by week, and he's a force to be reckoned without a doubt in this country.
John Reynolds then, tail enders ahead of him. Carl Fogarty already past the tail ender, and that's Dave Redgate. Carl Fogarty cresting the mountain. Up pops the front wheel, but only just. Race leader Rob McElnea down at the hairpin. Just a little short dash now towards Barn. Round Barn, the adverse right-hander. Exiting, the checkered flag is in sight. It's being readied for the Humbersider, for the Loctite Yamaha. Rob McElnea then, clenched fist in the air. That'll move him, if my sums are correct, to within 5 points of championship leader Ron Haslam, who will have to do something a bit more spectacular in leg 2. A well-fought second place for Carl Fogarty. Number 40, a tail ender, Ian Green on the Delta Dispatch machine. There's Brian Morrison grabbing 4th. A very good and steady ride by Morrison. The rest of the field coming over. Matt Llewellyn, a good long way adrift. I'm a little bit surprised that they got that strung out. Nation coming over in what appears to be 9th place. We'll confirm that result as soon as we can. No mistaking the race winner, however, number 8, Rob McElnea. There it is, 3 seconds up on Fogarty. Reynolds, Morrison, Mike Edwards from Wigan. Matt Llewellyn was 6th, but a long way adrift. The 750 standings then, the gap has closed dramatically with McElnea just 5 points adrift of series leader Haslam. Race stringer Mackenzie won't improve on 61. Morrison and Mike Edwards.